Well, howdy there, folks. James, Political Friar, coming to you again. Hope you like the new digs. I was having a lot of trouble finding time and a place to record these videos at home because I got a job. Jobs are the worst. I wouldn't recommend them, but they are sometimes necessary. And so I said to myself, hey, if you have time at work, maybe you should record your videos there. And so here I am. You can see my beautiful mahogany backing and then the various degrees and certificates. Anyway, I've got the London School of Economics hat on today, and so we're going to have an international relations topic, and it's going to be Israel and Hamas and Hezbollah. And this is going to be the first of maybe a couple updates on this topic, just because I want to catch up with what happened over the last few months so that when we get into current events, you'll have a bit more context about what I'm thinking. And so I'm going to pick up where I left off in the last video that I did on this with Israel invading Rafah. Now, remember from the very first video that we did on Israel, Rafah crossing is the number one most strategically important place in Gaza. It's where Egypt and Gaza meet, and it's the only border crossing that was not controlled by the Israeli military. It's almost certain that most of the supplies that Hamas got were smuggled through the Rafah crossing, not through the ones controlled by Israel. And the Egyptians were on the verge, the Israelis were on the verge of attacking that city on the ground when we last talked. Well, the Israelis did it. Over the strenuous and strident objections of the United States and basically everybody else, Israel attacked Rafah and cleared it. It forced the citizens that had been gathering in the south of Gaza to move back towards the center of Gaza and redisplacing all of those millions of people again. And the Israelis continue to pursue the same basic siege tactics that we talked about way back when in the very first video. See, the Israelis can control the supplies coming into Gaza. They can measure how many calories are being sent over the border per person, and they can restrict those. They can also force the population to come to the Israelis basically for sustenance. And they're doing that for a very specific reason, and it's not because they hate the people. Well, mostly it's not because they hate the people. There are certain elements in the Israeli government which are, quite frankly, despicable. But the practical reason why the Israelis have adopted this siege tactic is because it allows them to separate the Hamas militants from the Gazan population. See, if everybody's coming to you for food, you have an opportunity to see everybody. And the Hamas stores will run out. And at that point, the Hamas fighters are just as much at Israel's mercy as the civilians. And so, as the Israelis have enforced their occupation of Gaza in general, they're also taking the opportunity to separate the Hamas fighters from the general population. It's a brutal tactic. It's ruthless, and it is certainly effective. It's the sort of thing that the British did in Malaysia in the 1950s, and it's the sort of thing the United States tried to do in Vietnam, although not as successfully. The counterinsurgency playbook is not just David Petraeus's hearts and minds. It's also a much crueler form of dependency on the occupiers as a effective method of doing so. And the Israelis have opened up that old set of tactics, and they're enforcing them to some effect. Now, the broader story here is why Israel continues to fight in Gaza without making any attempts at a ceasefire to get the hostages back. See, many people in Israel would gladly just give up Gaza, let Hamas take it back over to get the 101 hostages back. Well, Benjamin Netanyahu has decided that he's not going to do that. He has taken a little bit of a harsh approach, similar, frankly, to the Allies in World War II. The policy of the Allies in World War II against Germany and Japan was unconditional surrender. That is to say, they wanted to destroy that society, and the casualties among civilians were irrelevant. As Roosevelt was fond of saying in 1941 and 42, well, they asked for it, and they're going to get it. And that does seem to be Benjamin Netanyahu's attitude. At every turn, the opportunity for peace is only something that he'll accept after military victory. And military victory is hard. It takes a lot of time, if it's possible at all. Many believe it's not. It remains to be seen whether the Israelis can militarily defeat Hamas in Gaza. Even today, it's not a sure thing, but that's the strategy that Benjamin Netanyahu has decided to adopt. And anybody telling him otherwise can be damned. Netanyahu understands that fundamentally the United States will not cut off military aid to Israel. They just won't. It's not politically palatable. And so when Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or any future administration tries to use the only lever they've really got against Israel, which is that military aid, it's just not going to work. The risk that Benjamin Netanyahu is taking is to Israel's long-term reputation. Israel is already flirting with international pariah status, and although the consequences and costs of that status are relatively low in the short term, they can be severe in the long term. Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to walk that fine line. He's also trying to save his own political skin. See, it's not just that he wants to defeat Hamas or that he's calculated that the only way to do so is militarily. It's that the moment there is peace, there will also be an election. And Netanyahu will lose that election unless the circumstances on the ground are drastically different. That is to say, victory for Israel, and I mean military victory, also equates to political survival for Netanyahu. And so expect him to keep fighting and expect it to escalate, like with an invasion of Lebanon. But more on that later. All right, I hope you liked that. Let me know how wrong I am in the comments down below. Leave me a like, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and just know I really appreciate you. And let me know what you think of the new surroundings. I haven't got the lighting exactly how I like it, but at least I'm back on. All right, I appreciate you. Thanks.